Welcome, everyone. My name is Scotty B, and I'm really excited to be here with you guys today. For those who may be joining us for the first time, or if we haven't connected recently, I recently moved into a junior development role here at iClass Pro, which gives me the opportunity to work even more closely with our development team and to provide insight on new features that we're rolling out for you. In today's session, is all about helping you save time and simplify some of your biggest operational tasks, especially when it comes to billing. We know that managing billing schedules, keeping track of sessions, and handling enrollments can take a lot of time behind the scenes. That's why we're excited to walk through some of the more powerful updates that are designed to automate your processes, reduce manual or mitigate manual work, and give you more control over how and when charges are created. So in today's session, we're going to be focusing on modular and session-based automated billing. Say that 5 times fast, including how to configure the auto charge scheduler and how automated billing can support both modules and session-based classes. To guide us through all of this, we have our resident expert and documentation specialist, Mr. David Primo, who will walk us through how we set up show how some of these features work in real workflows, and help you understand how to get the most out of them. And as always, we have our amazing Zach in the chat from our customer support team, helping to address some of the questions in the chat box along the way. So without further ado, Dave, take it away.
All right. Thanks, Scotty. Welcome, everyone. I'd like to take a moment to thank all of our team members who are working behind the scenes to make sure everything runs smoothly. Special shout out to Zach, who is answering your questions in chat. So today, as Scotty said, we're going to be talking about iClass Pro's automated billing workflows. And if this seems like a little bit of deja vu, you have heard some of this before. This is not the first automated billing that we've released. We released some last fall, but what we're talking about today are some very important updates that have been asked for. You've been asking for them, and we heard you. So I'm going to walk through these newest workflows first, and then we can answer any questions about the original workflows if needed. So first of all, a little background on why this was released in 2 parts. So the workflows that we initially released last fall are an all-in-one solution. It assumes you run your billing and you collect your payments all on the same day. That works great if that's the way you run your billing, but I know that we have a lot of our customers who like to put the charges on the ledgers in advance and then they run their actual payments later. And those workflows didn't work very well for that. It also did not support session-based billing. So to address these issues, we have now released modular billing. So what modular means is that we've taken those all-in-one workflows and we've broken down the individual actions into standalone workflows. So you can schedule them to run separately when you want them to and separately from the others. This also allowed us to address the session-based billing issue by developing a separate tuition creation workflow specifically for session-based billing. So you're not going to see an all-in-one solution for your session billing if that's the way you do it. What we're going to walk you through today is how to set up those individual workflows to run the way that you want them to. Okay, so before you begin setting up the automated billing workflows, the auto charge scheduler needs to be configured based on how you bill. And I'm going to show you how to do that. I'm going to share my screen here. So let's go into screens and there we go. So you should be looking at an iClass Pro account here. This is my test account. So before you begin setting up the automated billing workflows, like I mentioned, you have to configure the auto charge scheduler. The system uses the auto charge scheduler to assign the appropriate charge category to any tuition charges that get created based on the dates when the student will be active. For the monthly and session billing workflows, this is based on whether you choose to charge for students who are active in the current month or session or the next. Some of you might be thinking that this sounds different from the original release, and it is, because back then we based that charge category on the due date of the charges. So this change was necessary to support session-based billing and to allow billing monthly in advance for the next month. If you're still using the original workflows, this change doesn't really affect those, since the due date of the charge is created when you bill everything on one day is generally that day. And so it would be pulling that appropriate charge category anyway. So what we're going to do here, we're going to take a look at the settings. So I went to the user menu. I'm going to settings. We're going to go to setup. Before we jump into the auto charge scheduler, it should go without saying, but I'm going to go ahead and say it anyway. Before you set up your auto charge scheduler, because you're going to be choosing the charge categories, you want to make sure that the charge categories you want to use, that they actually exist and that they are not expired. So you can double check that here in the general settings, and you go to charge categories, and you can make sure if I'm going to bill monthly, I want to make sure I have charge categories for every month. If I'm going to bill by session, then I want to make sure I have all of my sessions set up. So if I go here, I can see here I have session 1, 2, 3, and 4. And so if I bill by session, maybe those are the ones I want to use. They do exist. If a charge category I want to use has an expiration date in the past, if I need to use that, I can go in and edit it and just remove that expiration date or adjust it if needed. If for some reason the charge category I want to use has been deleted, I can click on Show Deleted Items, find that charge category, and I can restore it using the Restore button here. So once I've made sure that my charge categories exist, then I want to configure my auto charge scheduler. And to do that, I'm going to go here to Class Settings, and I'm going to open the Auto Charge Scheduler. Now, for automated billing, it only works with either month-to-month or custom. It does not support single select. So for month-to-month, that is for if you bill monthly. So if you bill everybody tuition each month, then you would configure month-to-month, and then you would assign a charge category to each individual month. Now for if you bill by sessions or rolling sessions, and just as a disclaimer here, I'm going to say sessions usually, but whenever I use the term sessions, I mean sessions or rolling sessions, depending on how your classes are set up. But I'm using sessions just in the general term as a fixed amount of time, a fixed start and end date. But if I go to custom, I would need to define my own custom date ranges and assign the charge category that I want the system to use during that date range. And generally your date ranges are going to align with your session dates. So if I bill quarterly, so I'm going to bill from January to March, April to June, July to September, and October to December, then I would set up my dates. And so my first session maybe runs. Now you'll notice as I go back, this turns red. It will not let me predate anything. So I'm going to say from here to the end of the month would use session 1. And then I can add a new row, and I would say starting on April 1st until the end of June, I'm going to use session 2. And I would continue that, adding a new row until I have it completely configured. Now, we do recommend if you bill by session that you create just enough charge categories that you can reuse every year. Note these are not session 1, 2026, session 2, 2026. I'm just going to use session 1, session 2, session 3, session 4, and then the date of the charge is going to tell me what year it was for. That way I don't have to go in and create new charge categories every year. This is especially true if you bill fortnightly. If you bill every 2 weeks, you create 26 charge categories once. They're already there. All you have to do is go in and update your dates every few weeks. Or in the case of these 3-month sessions, I only have to do it about every 3 months. Beginning of April, I'll come in here and change the dates for session 1 to be in 2027. When 2027 rolls around, it's already configured. I don't have to worry about did I go in and change that. Just becomes part of my regular workflow. Okay, so in my case right now, I'm going to go and leave it set to month. I am going to show you how to configure a session workflow, but for the purposes of my auto charge schedule, I'm going to leave it set to month. And let's go in and take a look at the workflows. All right, so for the most part, the modular pieces are configured just like the corresponding sections of those all-in-one workflows that we previously released. But I'm going to walk you through each one individually anyway, and we'll point out anything that's different. Before we start, let me go ahead and go here to the Autopilot page and let me note that the staff members who are going to set up and configure these workflows have to have the staff permission. It is a tasks permission to access this Autopilot view. I know that your first inclination is if it's any of these buttons across the top, we're going to look for a page permission. But for Autopilot, we pretty much wrapped everything up in if they have the Autopilot tasks view, they can do anything related to Autopilot. So just that one permission is all they need. And of course, if you've given the staff member admin access, they'll have that permission granted automatically. Okay. Also, I'll note that because, as we just saw with that auto charge scheduler, you can only have one option enabled at a time. You can either have month to month or you can have custom. You can only run autopilot workflows for either monthly or session at a time because it can only reference that one auto charge scheduler. So what we recommend is that if you do have both monthly classes and session-based classes, that you configure your automated billing to handle the most common scenario. In most cases, that would be your monthly billing because that's something you run every month. If you run by session, maybe you're only running that billing every 6 weeks, every 3 months, whatever. So that's something you could run just those few enrollments that run session-based. You could run those manually. And then you can let the autopilot handle your monthly and take that off of your monthly duties. So for all automated billing workflows, as we go through here, you'll notice that there's not an option to prevent duplicate charges like there is whenever you run it manually. And that's because that is enabled by default. We automatically enforce that and we look to make sure that there are no duplicates within the past 6 months. So that's not a setting because it's hardwired in there. And then lastly, this is just a warning and best practices. If you run multiple automated workflows simultaneously, there is a possibility, depending on how you have your filter set, that that could create duplicate charges or payments if you don't allow sufficient time for one to finish before the next one kicks off. Therefore, it's highly recommended if multiple workflows are scheduled that you provide a sufficient delay in that scheduled time for them to run so that one can finish, then the other one starts. And because the system only checks for duplicate charges that already exist on the ledger, you want to be careful about your filters because if you run 2 previews simultaneously with the same filters, it's going to give you the same results. That's just the way it works. And then because those were not processed and put on the ledger, whenever we go to process those, it's not going to detect the duplicates and it is going to create duplicate charges. So always double or even triple check the schedules that you have these set to run on and be sure to provide ample time. I recommend usually whenever we configure these, you're going to see there's a wait for action between processing the preview and actually processing the charges, putting them on the ledger. What I recommend is you look at the value that you have set for that wait for action and you allow 15 to 20 minutes on either side of it. So if you have a wait time of 30 minutes between the preview and the process action, then I would recommend scheduling the tasks at least an hour apart. If you're billing a large number of customers, you might push that out even further to give the system time to complete, and then you can kick off the next action. All right, some of that may sound a little confusing right now. It is going to make more sense as we see how it actually works in the real world. So first of all, let's go ahead and go on to the workflow. So we're going to click here on workflows, and then we want to add a workflow. So what you'll see here, first of all, if you haven't visited the screen in a while, is we have put in 5 new workflows. So we have the automated billing for anniversary charges as its own separate task, applying credits, capturing payments, class tuition charges monthly, and then this is the new class tuition charges session-based. So what I want to do is I want to walk you through a scenario of how to set this up. Let's say that I like to create my charges on the 25th of the month. I like to run my actual billing on the 1st of the month. So the first thing I want to do is on the 25th, I want to create the actual class tuition charges. So let's look at how that would work for monthly first. So I'm going to click here on monthly. And the first thing I'm going to see here is a scheduled event. And you'll notice it says user input is required. And that's because we have made some great improvements to scheduling actions. And so we're going to walk through this here. And if we click scheduled event, the first thing we see, we can set the frequency. Previously, we just pretty much said on the 25th of the month at this time, run it. However, I can schedule it now to run every day, every week, once a month. I can even schedule it yearly. So if I had a session that ran an entire year, I could schedule this particular workflow to run once a year and be done with it. But I'm going to go ahead and do monthly because this is monthly. And then I could say repeat every 1 month. I could say every 2 months. If this was session based and they're 3-month sessions, I could just have it run every 3 months. But I'm going to run this once a month on a specific date. And I want to run that on the 25th because I want to put the charges on the ledger on the 25th. And it tells me my first date on the 25th, that is after today, is March 25th. If I wanted to wait and start that in April, I would just change that date. And the time. So I want to go ahead and run this at 7 a.m. So I'm going to say 7 o'clock a.m. And I'm just showing you here on the list how to flip through this. I could, if I wanted to, type that in. So if I needed to run that at 8, I could just say 8:00 in AM or PM. You don't have to scroll through that list. Once I have that, then I have here that tells me the next 5 occurrences based on how I have it set up. So the next 5 occurrences are, as expected, March 25th, April 25th, May 25th, going on. And I can tell it whether I want that to continue always, which means in never. It's going to just keep on running until I tell it not to. Or let's say this is a summer session and I only want it to run until like August the 9th or something like that, August 25th. I could put an end date in there and this workflow is going to stop running after that date. Because these are monthly classes, they're ongoing, I'm going to go ahead and leave that set to never. I click apply schedule and it pops up again, an option here for me to read through what I have set up and make sure it's correct. So please review and confirm the recurring schedule configuration. Run every month on the 25th at 8 o'clock a.m. Well, that's not right because I actually want it on at 7 o'clock. I went back and changed it to do that little demonstration. So I'm going to hit cancel. I'm going to go back in here real quick and I'm going to change it to the 25th at 7 o'clock a.m. Apply schedule. Now it says 7. That's what I want. And I'm going to go ahead and confirm and apply. And it fills in there to tell me this is my schedule. Next, I'm going to choose my class tuition charges monthly preview. This is where I configure how I want it to work. So if I click there, I can choose my location. If I'm a multi-location account, just like when running it manually, I would need to have an instance of this workflow for each location to make sure everybody gets billed. If I'm a single location account, that should automatically default to your one. So I'm going to go ahead and say this is for my first location. I choose my billing schedule. So I want to run this just for people on the monthly billing schedule. And then this is where we have students active in either the current month or the next month. Now, this is based on the day that it runs. So if I chose the current month and it runs on March 25th, it's going to try to choose students who are active in the month of March. I want to bill ahead for April though. So I want to say students active the next month. And that way it only pays attention to students who are active in that next month. I can set my due date in X days. I'm going to go ahead and set this for 7 days just to kind of force that into the next month because I'm billing on the 25th. I want that due date to be pushed out to April so people don't log in and see that they have past due charges for a month that hasn't even started yet. Send summary to email. Whatever email addresses I put in here, when this preview is generated, they will receive a notification letting them know that the preview is ready to review. So I'm going to go ahead and put in an email address here. And if I wanted to put in multiples, I would just put in a comma, a space, and put in the next email address. So I could send that to as many people as I want. Send summary to phone is an optional field, and it's optional because it uses the SMS service, and that would cost you a credit for each notification that gets sent out. So if you do have one person that you want to send it to with a phone number, you don't have to send something to everybody who gets an email. They don't have to get a text message as well. But that's entirely up to you. You can leave phone blank if you don't want anyone to receive it. I just want myself to receive the email, so I'm going to remove that comma, and then I would hit apply. Once I have that complete, I would hit the wait for action. The wait for action always defaults to an hour. So at this point, if it takes 10 minutes to do a preview, it takes 10 minutes to process it. There's an hour in between. We're looking at an hour and 20 minutes for it to complete this one workflow. I don't think I'm going to need a full hour to log in and check that preview since I'm the only one working on it. So I'm going to reduce that to 30 minutes just to give myself time whenever I get the email to get to the computer, get logged in, check that preview, make sure everything's correct. So I'm going to hit apply. That reduces this wait for action to 30 minutes, and I cannot do anything with this last one. It's the actual process action. So the way this workflow works right now is every month on the 25th at 7 a.m., the system is going to generate a class tuition charges preview using the filters that I just configured. Once that preview is ready, it's going to send me an email. And if I had put in a phone number, it would send me an SMS as well, letting me know that the preview is ready for me to look at. When I log into my Office portal, I have 30 minutes to look at the background tasks and pull up that preview and review the results and make sure that it is the way it should be before the system processes it. And then whenever it processes it, it puts the charges on the ledger. And because this is one part of a modular workflow, it stands alone, that's it. Once it processes those charges and puts them on the ledger, it does not go any further. If I was using the all-in-one, the next step would be it would kick off the next workflow. It doesn't happen that way here. I control when that next step happens. So I will save my changes. If I am ready to use this workflow, I would enable it, and on the 25th of the month, it would automatically start generating the class tuition charges previews and sending me the notifications and going on. So before we move on, just one thing, I did allude to the fact that you need to log into the Office portal and review the preview. Make sure it is set up the way you like. If you're happy with it, you don't have to do anything. You leave it alone at the end of the 30 minutes or whatever your wait for action is. The system processes it, puts those charges on the ledger. Everything's good. If you discover a problem and you say, this is not right, I don't want these charges put on the ledger because they're going to be wrong, all you have to do is delete that preview from your background tasks before the 30 minutes is up. When the system goes to process it, there will be no preview for it to process, and it stops right there. At that point, you can make your corrections. You could run it manually with the corrections in place if you wanted to go ahead and process it manually, or you could change the schedule and let it kick off and run again now that you've made the necessary corrections. And I mention this because this gives you a lot more control over that than the all-in-one does. If you are still using the all-in-one, then if I discovered a problem in the preview action of the class tuition charges and I canceled that, I'm not going any further. It is not going to process the class tuition charges. If I used the all-in-one workflow that the next step was to process anniversary charges, it would not move on to that step, and I would be left having to do them all manually or make my corrections and kick everything off again to run one right after the other. Doing it modular gives you that control to stop one action, and as long as that action is complete before the next scheduled action kicks off, then it should continue on its merry path and you don't have to worry about anything else. So let's go back one more page before I go on to how to set up class tuition charges for sessions. Scotty, are there any questions on the monthly?
There are a few questions coming in, but I think progressing through the presentation might answer some of them. So we'll circle back after you get through the monthly and then like the payments module.
Okay. All right, so let's go ahead and move on to session. Because this is new, we'll take a look at it. However, for the most part, it is like scheduling the monthly. The only difference is that we are looking at session dates rather than months. So if I click here on the automated class tuition charges session, again, we're going to run through that scheduled event. Now, I run my sessions for 3 months in my account here. So if I wanted to run this every third month, starting on the 25th of April because I don't want to start in the middle of this session. I've already billed for session one. I want to go ahead and bill ahead for session two. So actually, I'm going to say on the 25th, I am actually going to do it in March to bill for April. And just like my monthly, I'm going to do at 7 o'clock a.m. Now, this is, again, I cannot run both session and monthly class tuition charges at the same time. So I'm not as worried about an overlap here. I know I scheduled my monthly at 7 o'clock, but it's not active. It's not going to run. So I'm going to go ahead and run this at 7. Now, this shows me here it's going to run on March 25th, which is going to bill ahead for April. It's going to run on June 25th, which is going to bill ahead for July, and then September, December, and on to next year. That's what I want it to do. So I'm going to go ahead and apply the schedule. I'm going to confirm and apply the schedule. And now I'm going to go in and configure my actions for the actual preview. So I do this, I choose my location, I choose my billing schedule, which this time is going to be session. And then I'm going to look at students I have active in the current session or the next session. So just like with classes, this is running on March the 25th. If I say current session, session one is the one that's active in March. I don't want that. I want to bill for the next session so I get those active in April, June, and July, or excuse me, April, May, and June. Again, due date in X days. I'm going to go ahead and kick that up to 7 days to push that due date into April. I'm going to put in my address for the person that's going to get the email, and I'm going to go ahead and click apply. I'll hit my wait for action here. I'm going to change that to 30 minutes just because that's my preference. You can set that farther out or, give yourself more time if more people need to review it, or if you're billing a lot of customers. You can even leave that set at a higher time at the beginning. And as you get more confident that it's giving you the right results, you can go in and reduce that window later if you need to. And then I can't do anything with this last action because it's locked. I'll save my changes. And when I'm ready for that to run, I would enable it. So that's the only difference there with the session billing and the monthly billing is number one, you might set your frequency differently like I did. Instead of running every month, I'm running it every 3 months. And you're looking at the session rather than the month whenever you're talking about students active and current or next. Let's go ahead and look at one more charge tuition preview, and then we're going to get into, we'll pause for questions, and then we'll get into the actual payments actions. But the next thing is optional, and it is the anniversary charges. If you'll remember in the all-in-one workflows, there is one just for creating class tuition charges, applying credits, and running payments. There's another one that adds an action in there for creating the anniversary charges. So I'm going to open up the one for the anniversary charges because I do want to create them. But there is one little caveat with the anniversary charges, and that is right now, we are looking only at students who are active on the day, within the month that it is running. So there's not really a way right now to bill ahead for anniversary charges. You're always billing for the date. So I'm going to change things a little bit from what I did with my tuition. My tuition I put on the 25th because I'm billing ahead for the month. I can't really do that right now with anniversary charges. So I'm going to run my anniversary charges first thing on the day that I run payments and make sure I get the students who are active in that month only. So I'm going to do my scheduled event. I'm going to do monthly, but I'm going to run it on the first of the month because I'm going to apply my credits and run my payments right afterward. So I'm going to say on a specific date, I'm going to do it on the first of the month. It's going to start on April 1st, which means on that date, it's going to look at students who are active in the month of April who are eligible for anniversary charges, or families if my account is set up to charge per family rather than by student. I'm going to run this at 7 o'clock. We have the next 5 instances. That looks right to me. I don't want to stop it on a specific date. I'm going to go ahead and apply the schedule, confirm and apply schedule. And now I'm going to go into configure my anniversary charge preview. So again, I choose my location. Now you'll notice here there's program and charge category. This is the program and charge category that are going to get assigned to the charges that get created during this action. So for my program, I want this to be anniversary. And for my charge category, I want it to be anniversary fee. You'll want to make this match the way you have it set up in the rest of your system. in your anniversary fee settings, there is a program that is already defined that you do whenever you configure those. You'll want to make sure that your anniversary program matches there. Then we have enrolled in, and right now we just have what type of event they're enrolled in. So you can say either a class or a camp or both. So I'm going to go and say class because I don't want to charge an anniversary fee for students who are only enrolled in maybe a drop-in camp or something like that, a parents' night out or an open gym. Due date in X days. Well, I'm charging it on the first of the month and I'm about to run payments immediately. So technically, I don't have to change this at all. If I wanted to, I could, but I'm going to go ahead and leave that set to 0 because it doesn't really matter when it's due because I'm going to try to collect on it immediately. If I wanted to go ahead and give a few days, though, I could put that at 5 or 7 or whatever. I'm going to put in my preview here, my preview summary email address, put in my summary to phone and apply. Put in my wait for action, which again, I'm going to reduce down to 30 minutes. And anniversary charges are usually a pretty quick task. So I'm going to say I could get by with waiting an hour before I schedule my next thing. So 30 minutes and 30 minutes on 15 minutes on either side of it would give me an hour between this and my next task. Generate anniversary charges process, can't do anything with that because it's locked. Save, and when I'm ready to start, I need to be sure to hit enable. Okay, so those are all the charge action workflows. Scotty, is there anything there before we move on to the credits and payments?
Yeah, I do think there's a few points that I think worth mentioning to the group. And so we had a question come in about due in X days. So can we just kind of clarify whenever we're setting the due date on these charges when we're running these workflows? Can you just run through that real quick versus due in X days versus due on this day?
Correct. Yes, sir. So right now we don't have a way to say a specific date. So normally when your manual action for anniversary charges or class tuition charges, you would say it was due on a specific date. So you could say it's going to be due on the 1st of the month, the 10th of the month, or whatever. In the automation workflows, because it's something that's going to be reused every month, right now you are saying how many days from the date this charge is created is it going to be due? So whenever I had my run date, my schedule date for this on the 25th, I was putting in the 7 days. So that way it pushes it out as the due date into the next month. That's going to vary based on how many days are in the month. So, in February, whenever you run that, if you run it on the 25th, most years pushing it out 7 days means it's going to be actually due on, so let's see, the 26th, 27th, 28th. It's actually going to be due on March the 4th. For months that have 30 days, it's going to move back a little bit further. For those that have 31, it's going to be a little bit further than that. So that is, I use 7 just to be sure that it fully pushes it into that next month, regardless of how many days are in the month. If you are using the all-in-one workflow, or if you're if you're creating charges on the same day that you're going to collect the payment, you can leave that set to 0. That way it uses that same day. So for this one, for example, the anniversary charges, it's going to run on April 1st. If I put due date in X days as 0, the due date is going to be April 1st as well. If I put a 1 in there, it would push it out to April 2nd and onward. So right now, that's the only way as far as the charge creation that we can set a due date is it's kind of relative to what day of the month it's run and how many days are in that month.
Thank you, Dave, for that clarification. There were a few questions. I believe a question came in. So for each different tuition, I would need to create a new workflow. I think it's better to understand for each billing schedule, you would need to create a workflow. So regardless of the attached tuition on the class, if your billing schedule for all of your classes is session, you would only need to set up one workflow for your session billing schedule. Now, say in some event, customers could have more than one billing schedule. Maybe you have a session 1st of the month billing schedule and then a session 15th of the month billing schedule, or however you configure it. You would need to set it up for each billing schedule you want the charges run on or the billing run on. I hope that makes sense.
Right. Yeah,
Go ahead.
no, that is absolutely correct. It would be one per billing schedule, and then the only add-on to that is if you have a multi-location account, you would need a separate workflow for each location as well. So
Yeah,
if you run monthly, but you have two locations, you would need two copies of it running for that monthly billing schedule.
that's a good call out. I think that question came in as like setting it up for different tuitions or different programs. Just important to note that it's associated with the billing schedule.
Exactly.
Um, we had a question for the wait for action. Someone uh, Oh, I believe it was Miss Marianne. For the wait for action on these charge workflows, that's our way of giving you guys the opportunity to go and kind of double check the charges that are being created. You don't need to take any action necessarily during that wait for action. That just gives you that moment to log in, see what charges are being created. If anything looks off, stop it and then rerun that workflow or what have you. But there's really no action that you need to take.
That's correct. The wait for action is actually the system waiting between the action of creating the preview and the action of processing it. So the name is a little misleading. There's no action needed on your part unless you need to interrupt the workflow because something looks off.
Yep. Thank you, Dave. And then I think to kind of wrap up this little section of questions, we did answer this already, but yes, anniversary fees, that is its own modular workflow. So you can set that up just to run anniversary fees. However, we do still have, if you're kind of more of a simple billing, monthly billing, and you want to include anniversary fees, we do have features that already exist in there where you could just do that all in one workflow. Um, but and then yes, last, you can run charges and billing on the same day. So if that's your
Yes.
cup of tea, set it up that way and then just know that it's taken care of on the first of the month or the last of the month, without expanding it over maybe a couple days or what have you.
Right. And you can use that original all-in-one workflow that we released for that.
Mhm.
As long as it's monthly. If you're running session-based, you do have to set them up as separate modules. But once they're set up, you just forget about them. They'll still run on every month. You would just run
Yeah.
them all, set them all on the same day and run them back to back with enough period in between for one step to complete.
Yep. 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 And I think again, lastly, a few more that came in since I started talking. I want to run credits before running payments. Absolutely, you can do that. We have a workflow for that. So you can make sure to take care of all the credits on a family account applied toward those charges before actually running their pay method on file. So you can absolutely do that. Um,
Right. And in those all-in-one workflows, that's already the way it's handled. And
mhm.
as I'm about to walk you through those separate workflows for applying credits and capturing payments, that's the order I recommend as well, as we'll run them back to back, but we will apply credits first.
Yeah. Uh, Anniversary charge. Unfortunately, we don't support different anniversary fees based on like program or what have you. It's sort of kind of a blanket fee that's associated with all or any active enrollments that would come in through your customer portal. So at this time, we don't currently have a way to kind of separate those out depending on program or class or what have you. Um, I think that kind of covers for charges. We have a lot of great questions coming in. If there's any questions that were submitted to the chat and either I didn't call them out here or Zach hasn't been able to answer those yet, it might be because they're super specific to your account and may need additional kind of clarifying conversation to happen between like you and a support agent or what have you to make sure we're understanding exactly what you're asking and the proper way to set that up into your account. So if by any chance we leave this call today and your question was not answered, please, please, please reach out to support and they'll be more than happy to assist you. But Dave, I think we can go ahead and continue with the payments portion of the workflows.
Okay. All right. So I'm going to go back into my main workflow screen here and we have our add a workflow here. And so first of all, we'll look at apply credits. And just like we just mentioned, we do recommend always applying credits first. And then that way families are only billed for the remaining amount that they owe. If you run payments before you apply credits and the family had a credit on their account, that credit is not used and it is still there at the end of the process. They're going to get billed for the full amount and that credit will still remain on their ledger unapplied. So we always do recommend doing this first. Just like the others, I'm going to do a scheduled event here, and I want to run this on the first of the month. As I mentioned in my particular scenario, I want to run it right after I run the anniversary fees. So I am going to say on the first of the month, but my anniversary fees run at 7 o'clock. I have a 30-minute wait for action in the middle. As I already mentioned, it's a pretty quick task. So I feel confident that I can run this at 8 o'clock and there's not going to be an overlap. There's not going to be a situation where all the anniversary charges have not finished going on the ledgers and therefore families don't get billed their full amount. So I'm going to go ahead and say 8 o'clock. If I run a very large facility, if I have, thousands of active students, tens of thousands of active students, maybe I push that out to 8:30. It's just however you feel comfortable. So I'm going to go ahead and say 8 o'clock. Never ends because I want to keep up all year long. I want to keep up with the anniversary fees, and I'm going to go ahead or the credits. So I'm going to go ahead and do apply schedule. It's giving me the schedule summary, run every month on the first at 8 o'clock, and that's good. I'm going to go ahead and say yes. So now I'm going to generate the apply credits preview. So first of all, location. Credits are tied to specific locations. If a family, so I'm going to look at families who have credits that are available to be used at Sunshine Kids, and that those families may be active at Sunshine Kids. We'll talk about that in a second. But for charge types, I can limit it to just specific types, and you'll notice that these are your line item types from your charges on the ledgers. So if I only want to apply credits to class tuition charges and maybe anniversary fees and leave everything else alone, I can certainly do that. Or I can select everything and say, I want to apply credits to anything that matches these other criteria that I say. So I'm going to go ahead and choose that. For charge due, we have due on or before. So this is a little different than the charge due on that we did when we created the charges. This is looking at that due date for the charges, and it's only going to look at charges that are due on or before X many days from the date this runs. So if I say due on or before and I leave my due date set to 0, it's only going to look at charges that are due on the first or before. If I pushed that due date out on my tuition charges, that may not capture the right ones. So I may go ahead and say anything that's due on the 5th or before. And that way I'm sure to catch anything that maybe got pushed out from those charges created on the 25th. I can also say just due on. And if I did that, then this is 5 days from this date. So that would be from the 1st, add 5, it's the 6th. This would be only charges that are due on the 6th. That's probably not a real world scenario that you're going to see very often. So what we generally recommend is either due on or before or all outstanding charges. Now, if you choose all outstanding charges, it still shows that the box here is required, but it technically ignores that number. And we're only looking at when we're really looking at all outstanding charges that meet the charge type and charge category criteria that you set. So if I come down here, I'm going to say all outstanding charges. And for charge categories, maybe I want to go ahead and select just tuitions, maybe just anniversary fee. Maybe I want to go ahead and, pull in any pro shop items or anything like that. I'm going to go ahead and choose just my tuition fees and my pro shop items, because maybe I allow students to charge a beverage or something throughout the month and I pick it all up at the end of the month. And then I'm going to go ahead and grab my anniversary fees as well. Generally, I'm not going to go ahead and choose party bookings on my part, just because if I do parties, generally that due date on the party is now the date of the party. So really no need in doing that yet. Then we have the send summary to email, just like we do for the charges. But what the difference here is, we are looking at families, as I said, who have charges or have credits that can be applied at this location, are of any charge type, due at any time for the monthly tuition charges, pro shop, or anniversary fee. If they have a party charge on their ledger or a private lesson fee, it's not going to apply credits to those because they don't match. So just to clarify that, it is using those specific things to match up. Again, I could choose everything if I want to apply to whatever. I go ahead and choose apply. Again, I choose a wait for action, and this time I'm going to set that back to 30 minutes again. And now the generate apply credits process, can't do anything with that. But the way it is configured right now, on the first of every month at 8 o'clock, it is going to look at families who have credits that are active at that location that meet the charge type and charge category criteria, the due date criteria, and it's going to generate a preview of those for me. Once I have received the notification about it, it will wait 30 minutes, and if I do not cancel it, then it is going to apply credits to those families at that point. So I'll go ahead and save. When I'm ready for it to run, I would enable it. Okay, any questions about the credits before we move on to capturing payments?
No, we're good.
Okay. All right, so we'll go back into the autopilot. Last step here is capturing payments. And capturing payments is almost identical to applying credits with a couple of exceptions. First of all, we're going to schedule. We're going to do it monthly. We're going to repeat every month on the first. Just like anniversary charges, applying credits is usually not a big task for my account. So I feel confident scheduling this one to run at 9. So 7 o'clock, it generates anniversary charges. It already generated the tuition charges on the 25th. At 8 o'clock, it applies credits. And now at 9 o'clock, it's going to attempt to capture payments. So I'm going to go ahead and apply the schedule, confirm. I come into the capture payments preview. So location, first of all, only families who have charges associated with this location. And we have the family status. So we have active, inactive, and all. This is active on the day this runs. So if I allow families to book up to 7 days in advance, there's a small chance that there are some students there who may not be active until the 6th or 7th of the month. If I choose only active, those families are not going to be included. So for the most part, we recommend setting this to all to be sure that you capture all families who have matching charges. Just like in the apply credits, we have the charge types. I'm going to go ahead and choose all of those again. Charge due, I'm going to go ahead and say all outstanding charges, and I don't really have to change that due date because I'm looking at any due date. Charge categories, again, I'm going to choose all my tuitions. And just important to note, yeah, it looks like I'm choosing a lot, and I am, but this is the only time I have to set this up. Once it's set up, I don't have to come in here and change it again. And we're going to go ahead and do anniversary fees and pro shop. Okay, send summary to email. And then the other difference between this and applying credits is we have the option here to notify families if their payments are successful or failed. And this may look familiar to you from whenever you run it manually. So I'm going to go ahead. I want to send those emails out, and I'm going to go ahead and hit apply. I'm going to do a wait for action. Now, if I wanted to, I might say, well, these are payments. These are really going to hit the families hard if something's wrong. Maybe I want a little bit longer here. Maybe I don't want a full hour. Maybe I only want 45 minutes. But I can adjust this wait for action as long as I think it might take me to review these. So I'm going to go ahead and hit apply. And then there's a capture payments process. So the way this is configured right now, first of the month, 9 a.m., the system looks at all families, whether they're active or inactive, who have charges associated with my first location, because that's the one I chose, that meet the charge type and charge category criteria. And if their payments are successful or fail, I'm going to send them a notification. I have 45 minutes to jump in there and cancel this if anything's wrong. Otherwise, at the end of that 45 minutes, it is going to go ahead and run their cards. And I'm going to hit save. And when I'm ready for that to run, that would be enabled. So the way that my entire monthly billing workflow works right now, let's assume I'm not doing session, but on the 25th of the month, I'm going to create my monthly tuition charges. The family has all that time in between them and the first of the month to view that on the customer portal. I could go in and run a statements action if I want to send them out statements on the 26th. And then on the first of the month, I'm going to kick in the anniversary charges, and then I'm going to apply credits. I'm going to capture payments, and those families are going to receive a failed or successful notification depending on whether their payment was successful or failed. Now, just one other thing I want to note here. Um, Switching over to modular billing, as we said, gives you more control because you can cancel an individual action. If I had a problem with my anniversary charges, if I canceled it and got that resolved before 8 o'clock, my apply credits is going to go ahead and run anyway. It doesn't cancel the remaining actions like it does in the all-in-one. So it does give you more control over each portion. If you're set up for modular billing, what we might recommend here, based on whether you assess late charges or if you run the class drops task if for non-paid uh, bills, you might also schedule a second instance of the apply credits and generate payments, capture payments task to run a day or two before you run your late charges or class drops test. Just see if anybody's payment is successful at that point. Maybe you manually run the transaction statements task a day or two before you run the late charges or class drops task as well. Just to let the families know you're going to try this again, and if their payments are not successful, they'll either be subject to a late fee or maybe their enrollment's going to be dropped for non-payment. And just a reminder that if you do schedule multiple instances of a workflow, whether that is for a different location, for multiple billing schedules, as we mentioned, you might have a class with multiple billing schedules. We do recommend that you edit the title of the workflow to append something in parentheses to the end of that so you can identify exactly which workflow is being run. So this one I know is for my Sunshine Kids, just my main one. So maybe I just put main here. If I was running this for my second one, I might put my Sunshine Kids East. And then that way I know at a glance which workflow I'm going to edit or stop if something's wrong. Okay. So that's it as far as these. I'm going to pause here for a second to address any remaining questions. I did want to note real quick, though, we have released a lot of camp updates since our last Let's Talk Pro last month. So mark your calendars, keep an eye on your email. We're going to be having another Let's Talk Pro webinar coming up on April the 8th. That's going to be everything camp related. We're going to cover all of those updates that we've released since then and go over camps in general. But as far as questions about the automated billing, Scotty, is there anything we need to discuss?
Maybe just a few additional call outs we can have. Ashley, to be able to charge tuition credits and capturing, we'll need to have a workflow for each. That's kind of the beauty and the design of modular billing. It gives you kind of more control of each section of the billing process. So under the context of this webinar, yes, you would need to set it up separately. However, we do have workflows where, say, you bill monthly and nothing changes from month to month. We do have a single workflow that would kind of capture each kind of module that we just went over today in a single workflow versus having to set it up separately. I hope that makes sense. If you need any kind of additional explanation on that, please reach out to support. For Alana, for team fees that are recurring, if it's a tuition, if it's set up under a billing schedule and a tuition, yes. But if they're charges that you actually go in there and create at the time you're creating the charges, that wouldn't necessarily work under this kind of billing structure.
Yeah, it wouldn't automate other type charges like that. If you go into the families or students page and you do a mass charge for those team fees, we can't automate that. But if you create those before you apply your credits and run your payments, you can include that line item type in that charge
On
category
the
in there
payments.
to collect the payments automatically, but you can't automate creating the charges.
Perfect. Perfect call out. Thank you for that, Dave. Um, are you able to send statements? Yes. You can send,
No,
or well,
not automatically. What you can send are
yes.
failed or successful emails, but there is a bulk task for statements that you can run.
Yeah, sorry. That's what I was
Okay.
referring to. There is a
Yep.
bulk task that you can do. It is not part of the workflow. Sorry about
Right.
that. Um, uh, so if I'm understanding correctly, capture payments should be used in place of automated billing class tuition charges monthly. If you use automated billing class tuition charges monthly, that is the charge portion of the billing process. You would still need to run the payments portion of it if that's
That's
what you're looking to set up.
That's correct. The ones that say charges here for class tuition charges, monthly or session, or the anniversary charges, that is creating the charges on the ledger based on whether those charges exist. That is what the apply credits and capture payments will try to collect payment for.
Yeah. Yeah. These are all great questions that are coming in, but in the air of time and to respect everyone's time, I think we're going to kind of go ahead and wrap up. I do encourage you, please, 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 please. You have to understand whenever I say it is easy to sit in a space and not understand some of the words we, throw out there or verbiage that we use when it comes to setting these up. I know for some it can feel new and kind of overwhelming. Please reach out to support. Our goal is to provide you the understanding to understand how the software works and then what features are available to help you run that software more efficiently for your program or for your gym. So please do not hesitate to reach out to support. I always love getting an interesting question that might come up through support that might need some extra minds to kind of think about. So please, 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 please reach out to support if you still have questions or need assistance with setting this up or just don't understand maybe the relationship between billing schedules and the workflows. So if any of that is confusing, please lean on our support team. Again, thank you, Dave. That was a great walkthrough. We appreciate that.
Uh,
And just or go ahead.
I was just gonna say, thanks, Scotty. Also, just let you know, we do have the interactive demos accessible from the Education Corner. So if you go to the welcome page in the Office portal, click there, go to the Education Corner. In interactive demos, we have demos walking you through setting up each and every one of these autopilot workflows.
Yes, and Dave's put a lot of time into those interactive demos. They're fun. You don't have to talk to anyone. You don't have to call anyone. You can just pull it up on your screen and kind of click through the different steps of actually setting it up with some tidbits of useful information along the way. So they're super helpful if that's your learning style. So please check those out. And automated billing, it's an area where the right tools can really make the biggest difference or impact in your day-to-day operations. And today we saw how features like the auto charge scheduler and module and session-based automated billing can help streamline those processes. These improvements are all designed to give you more flexibility while saving you time. So if you are planning on starting to use those, or maybe you've already, started to use it, I definitely encourage to review our knowledge-based resources. Check out our walkthroughs that Dave just mentioned, any of our documentation that Dave referenced throughout the duration of the call to help you configure with confidence because that's our goal. So stay tuned for our next Let's Talk Pro. Dave did mention we have some exciting things happening with camps or have already happened with camps. So we'd love to go over and show you guys all the new fun stuff and for our camp. So invites for that Let's Talk Pro will be going out soon. And as always, your feedback helps us and shapes what we build next for you guys. So keep sharing those ideas and experiences with us. We truly, truly need and rely on those to help build a product that works best for you guys. So again, thank you for joining us today for our Let's Talk Pro, and we hope that these updates help you continue to run your business even more efficiently. So until next time, I hope everyone has a great day, and we'll see you next month.